I'm Richard Winters, and I want to give you a plan to help you desensitize your horse to a lariat rope. But first and foremost, how handy are you with a lariat rope? Do you know what it's like to move those coils from one hand to the other? Do you know what it's like to open up and build a loop? Do you know what it's like to throw that loop out and then be able to coil it back up without any twists in your rope? You've got to be handy with your tools. You can have great tools, but if you're not handy with them, you're going to run into trouble. So practice with this rope. Walk across the barnyard next time you're going from point A to point B and take your lariat rope with you and just play with it and get handy with these tools. As we start to work our horse with the lariat rope, we start on the ground. They can be saddled or they can be bareback. It wouldn't matter. But I'm thinking about my rope being a brush today. And I'm just going to groom my horse with this lariat rope. It makes a little bit of a clapping sound as it comes up against his body. I'm going to check things out here. Let him hear what that sounds like. Let him feel what that feels like. Working down his extremities and doing it with rhythm. This colt's handling this pretty good. He's had a rope around him a little bit, and he wants to be pretty gentle. What happens when you take this rope and go on the other side of your horse's body like this? Now he sees me out of his left eye, but he has to deal with the rope out of his right eye. So these are things that you want to check out on the ground before you get on him. Can you make some racket there on the saddle? Let him hear that. And is he worried about that? Now again, my colt's handling it just fine. If your colt's a little worried, you might need to spend a few sessions doing this kind of thing. Start off in a place that he can handle, and then work to those touchier spots. He's a little boogery about the bottom of his legs. Don't stay down there too long. Slide down and slide back up. And again, we're doing things equally on both sides. As I continue to prepare my horse for the rope on the ground, perhaps I'll build a loop about average size. And then I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to put it right over his butt. Now start off here, see what he can handle. Then I'm going to lay this right over his rump. And with the saddle on, I'll lay it right over the cantle of that saddle. I want to see how this horse can handle the idea of this rope dangling around his hind legs. Now, he not only feels it around his hind legs, but he also has to see it off to the side. These are all things that are going to help us acclimate our colt and get him used to this. Now, the main thing here is to stay organized. Are you able to keep your lead rope and your lariat rope organized? Do you know where you're at? Are you able to keep your horse out of trouble? So you check those things out, and you can do it on one side, and then you can go and do it on the other side as well. He's got that rope around his feet. Let him feel those things. Perhaps you're going out for a little ride. Why not just take the rope with you and then untie that rope from the saddle horn once in a while and just begin to rub your horse with it and desensitize your horse to it. If you only do it once every 6 months, he's probably not going to get used to it. But if you do it fairly often, it'll just be part of his routine. Then we'll think about building a little loop. You can just make a small loop at first and show him how that rope can grow and begin to rub him all over. Be aware when you come back here that you don't get in trouble. He doesn't get the rope over his tail or he gets scared and jump forward. Again, we stay organized, keep the reins and the coils in our left hand, our loop in our right hand. And I'll begin to move my arm out and bring it back in, and move my arm out and bring it back in and see if he can handle that. And then maybe come in here and swing my loop one time. But I'm going to try to do it back here, away from my horse's eye, not up over my head and not out here forward. Let's make it a little bit easier for our horse to handle as we swing that rope a little bit. Then perhaps we'll toss that loop out there and let him see it land. And then can he handle it as that rope begins to come back towards us again? Then perhaps we'll lob it out there and begin to walk some circles around the rope. Again, you need to stay organized. You need to know where your rope is. You need to know where your reins are and have control of your horse. And just play with the end of that. We're not attached to anything. And if things really went south and you really started having trouble Worst case scenario, you could get rid of this rope. You could drop the whole thing and take care of your horse. Then perhaps I'll build a little loop and lob it over his hindquarters and ask him to walk. We already introduced this idea to him on the ground, so it shouldn't be that big a deal. Again, I'm careful to always be ready to get that rope off if I start getting in trouble, but let him feel that. These are things that he needs to get acclimated to where he just realizes, you know what, that's just an extension of Richard's hands. That's just no big deal. And as it makes little noises, as it makes movements on the ground, a horse can handle these things. It certainly isn't rocket science. It's not a tough deal. It's just a matter of you taking the time it takes. Every horse is a little bit different. Some from the very first time don't seem to be bothered at all. Others are pretty scared and pretty standoffish. Take the time it takes. It'll end up taking less time. Get prepared. Make sure they're passing those tests on the ground. I'm Richard Winters, and thanks for watching.